Hey man, I'm Jusko from ProudMoney.com. The code has been cracked. The secrets have been revealed to the perfect 850 credit score. Well, maybe. We are going to look at the specifics in this video and you can decide for yourself. So the Wall Street Journal earlier this week devoted a full article to one man's 5-year quest to achieve the perfect 850 credit score and to look at the behaviors that he tweaked and tinkered with in order to achieve that score, which he did. Now, to be clear, this guy, Steve Mitchell, who is featured in the article, is 52 years old. He has had a mortgage, maybe has a mortgage. I don't know if they gave all those details, has kept his credit card debt low. And so this is not a guy who is starting from nothing and getting up to that 850. He's a guy who already had a credit score over 800, had done a lot of things right, and then he was looking for those tweaks to get himself to that perfect 850 credit score. Now, FICO doesn't say what it takes to get to the perfect 850, which is why you can sort of do everything right, or feel like you do everything right, and you're still not quite there. So this guy did some experimenting. So he tried a few different things, some of which I have questions about, and I will get back to that in a minute. But first off, they said that he tried to close some retail store credit cards to see if that was going to help his credit score get right to the tippy top 850, and that did not do the job. And really, closing credit cards oftentimes will hurt your credit score more than it will help it. So that is something that stands to reason. Now, one thing I found sort of interesting and a little funny about this is that in this quest for 850, sort of the main tool that this man was using was the Bank of America app, which told him that his credit score might be getting weighed down by too high of balances on his credit cards. Now, according to the article, Bank of America, his only banking relationship, sounds like he had one credit card with a $35,000 limit, and he was using 6% of that limit, which would equate to around $2,100. Now, using 6% of your credit limits is pretty low. That's actually a pretty good thing that will help you build your credit score. But if you want the perfect credit score, it still might be a little too much. And so what he did next was he went down to no balance at all on his credit cards, and that did not do the trick. So then he experimented on carrying a very, very, very small balance on the card throughout the month, as far as I can tell, still paying it off in full when the bill came. So he wasn't paying any interest, but he was keeping a very, very small balance on there, a very small credit utilization. So between 0.5% and 1.5%, which would mean he wasn't going over $525 at any point sitting there on his card as a balance. And that did the trick. He achieved the magic 850 credit score. But what he noticed was that on the Bank of America app, where he would get his score, he would only get it on the 19th. That's when it would update. But he realized that the balance that was being used for his credit score was not the same as what he was seeing as his current balance. And then he realized that Bank of America was sending his balance from a different date into the credit reporting agencies. And so then he had to figure out what date that was. Finally, he concluded over a few months that it was actually being reported on the 15th. And so one of the things we've talked about on this channel before is the fact that what matters when it comes to credit utilization and what can affect your credit score is what number is actually being reported to the credit reporting bureaus. So you can have a balance that is different throughout the course of a billing cycle on your credit card, but if it's high when it is reported to the credit reporting bureaus, well, then that's going to look worse than it is if it is low, even if it was high at a different time and low at a different time. So he found out that really the 15th is the time of the month that he needed to keep his balance at that super low level, and he even experimented a couple of months and right around the 15th made a couple bigger purchases and saw his score drop when he did that. So if you want that perfect 850 credit score, keeping your credit card balances at around 1% and making sure that they report at 1% when your credit card reports to the major credit reporting bureaus, TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax could be very important to getting you there. Now, this is only one person's experience. Their whole credit history also plays in here as well. But those are probably numbers that you can use and over time probably would get you there. One thing to be clear on here, I talked about about the 19th when he would get his credit scores, and then he finally narrowed it down to the 15th is when it was reporting. The 15th is not going to be the reporting date for everyone and every credit card. Every credit card is going to have a different billing cycle depending on when you opened the credit card, and so usually what is called your closing date is going to be the end of a particular billing cycle, and that is generally when a credit card is going to report to the credit reporting bureaus, although that is not always true. If you have questions about that, you could contact your credit card company, and it's possible you might get a customer service representative that even knows what you're talking about. But anyway, if you can figure out what that closing date is when things get reported to the credit reporting bureaus, that's the date when you want to make sure that that balance is as low as possible, but above zero when it gets reported to the agencies. Now, I do want to say one thing quickly, and that is that it is a little strange, first off, that this whole article was based around one person's experience. I don't know how they found this guy, but even more than that, talking about that 850 credit score, we're talking about a man who has one credit card and kind of did his tweaks and everything to figure things out based on just one credit card. No other credit cards. Now, obviously, he had a history. It said that he had a mortgage, either current or in the past, and that he had other loans and other credit cards. We talked about the retail store credit cards, but it's sort of strange, especially for someone who is trying to get an 850 credit score, that you would have one credit card that you would just be working on and trying to do those little tweaks to get it. So it's a little strange to me. Like, are we getting all the information in terms of what he did and what his past credit history was that would get him to the point that he could just do that little bit on one credit card? Experience says that most people that have an 850 credit score actually have more credit cards than the average person, although they keep their balances extremely low. So for him to have just one credit card and get the 850 would make him an anomaly. That's a hard word to say as far as that goes. Now, what did this guy Steve Mitchell get for achieving the perfect 850 credit score? Well, really nothing more than the satisfaction of having cracked the code, of having figured out how to get to that number, figuring out the FICO algorithm enough. But in the end, all it meant was that he figured out how to make all of his numbers work with the factors that they use to create that score to maintain an 850 credit score. But it didn't do anything in terms of the type of credit card offers he got. It wasn't going to make any difference in terms of interest rates or anything like that. Really, if you are over 800, that's pretty much the same as an 850 credit score in terms of how most lenders are going to look at you. Some people would even say if you're at like a 750, 760, that is going to make you pretty much the same as an 850. I would probably say that that's not quite true. I have found personally that when my numbers are like around 790 or above is when I get the very best of everything, always get approved, get the best interest rates, big credit limits, etc., etc. But what he found out was he didn't get anything extra for being at 850, and even found out that he basically was seeing the same credit card offers as his daughter, who had only 4 years of credit experience. So now you know the code to that perfect 850 credit score, but you also know that it is a waste of your time to try to get there. You will be dead one day, and on your deathbed, you do not want to think about all the hours that you spent thinking about achieving that perfect 850 credit score and the fact that it gave you no reward either in this life or in the next. Although technically, I can't tell you that an 850 credit score in this life might not get you a reward in the afterlife.